Hello there, Sharks. I'm Jonathan Little, here with one of my favorite poker players in the world, Faraz Jaka. He gets in there, he battles, he has fun. I hear you had a fun time in a $3,000 World Series of Poker tournament the other day.
I did. I think it was my first event of this year's World Series. 3K buy-in. I cashed with 1.4 big blinds under the gun. Big blind's going to hit me next hand. I grinded that thing out probably from an hour before the cash. I started stalling with reasonable time stalling, taking 30 seconds a hand. I mean, it's part of the strategy, man. You got to do it. But there's an obnoxious way to do it, like way too early or take way too much time. And there's a reasonable way to do it. So I announced on my table that, hey, I'm just going to take 30 seconds. And people were cool with that. As we started getting to, the final 10 players needing to bust, that's when it was really important for me to start paying attention to the other tables. Because as we got down to the, final 2 players, I realized there was one player who was shorter than me, but I was going to hit the big blind before them. So I was basically a favorite to bust before them. So I actually outstalled them.
You're playing great, man. You're playing great.
I outstalled them just for that last 10-minute bit, and that got us to a point where we were both going to hit the big blind at the same time. So when I was under the gun in that last hand, he was also under the gun, which means I guess we're 50-50 odds between who's going to bust between either of us, but luckily someone else busted.
Oh, wow. That was probably a mistake.
So we both I mean, who knows? It could have just been queens versus ace king. But even if that person didn't bust, at least I put myself in a 50-50 spot between that other guy. And obviously less than that, because probably we would have been all in for sure, yeah.
You got paid $4,500 for your stalling skills.
$4,800.
$4,800. Think of the value.
And I'm known as hyper aggressive player that's going for the win, and which is all true. But you got to be able to have everything in your arsenal and understand. A big misconception here. A lot of my students will sometimes be like, oh well, Faraz doesn't care about min cashing, right? It's not true, right?
If he has one big blind, he does.
Your goal is to make the most amount of money possible, and sometimes that means optimizing for the cash. Now, of course, there's people out there that maybe they have enough money or they don't care about the money and they're really there for the bracelet. Then yeah, you're going to be optimizing differently. But majority of people are optimizing for money, which means sometimes you need to optimize for the cash.
I mean, if you are a professional poker player, it implies you're trying to make money, not necessarily make bracelets.
Yep.
Because those don't necessarily pay the bills unless you have
unless you're an influencer.
Yeah, unless you have 15.
Then maybe you optimize for the bracelet.
Phil Helmuth is the main one who's made a living off the bracelets, but yeah. I don't think you're not doing that yet, huh? How many bracelets do you have?
0. 0.
That's embarrassing.
I know.
All right.
I have a lot of second. I got second this year.
Oh yeah.
In the bracelet event. It was an online bracelet event. $1,500 big 50. I think I cashed $187K.
Wow.
Second place, so I keep getting really close.
Brutal.
It's coming.
You'll get there one year if you put in enough volume.
I'll just do it in the main.
People watching this YouTube video are thinking, what is this video about? They're all over the place. I have a fun story to tell all of you since we have you here today. One of my friends just texted me. It's day 1E of the main event. That's when we're recording this. This will probably go up on YouTube in February 2024. But first hand, my friend's friend sat down at the table and said, I'm going to go all in on the first hand. Announced it. High-fived a few other people at the other tables. Made it clear he was doing it. It was a bluff, though. Okay, first hand. Someone raises, someone 3-bets. He rips it all in. Folds back around to a 3-better. He calls it off with jacks. The guy who was bluffing had pocket kings, and he got a double on the first hand.
Oh, so he just said that.
He said it in case he got aces or kings or queens. Got the double. First hand, chip leader.
Oh my god, that is sick. I love it.
Should we talk about a poker hand?
Sure.
All right, let's talk about a poker hand from your main event.
Okay.
You ever been all in on the first hand of the main event?
Not in the first hand, no. I've had some crazy-ish happen in early levels where I was all in pretty early, but not in the first hand.
All right, let's take a look at this hand. So, under the gun +2 raises it up to 1,500. This is near the end of day 1. Hijack calls. You're playing 80,000 deep roughly with King Jack of Hearts. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna lie, I call here a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I used to call here a lot. Now I do a lot more squeezing. And the idea behind squeezing here is a couple things. First of all, we all know playing out of position is not great for you, right? It sucks. And being out of position versus two people double sucks,
Well, you have to make a hand.
and so on. It just
Right.
the more people you're out of position against, it gets significantly worse. So what I'm thinking here is if I call, I'm going to be out of position versus all these guys. Whereas if I three bet, I can get heads up in the pot. My hand, I'm also going to get ace jack to fold a lot. I'm going to get king queen to fold a lot. So yeah, I get hands that dominate me to fold. Whereas if I call, we might both hit a king, both hit a jack, and now there's a lot of reverse implied odds. So yeah, a lot of good things happened. Take charge of the hand, fold out some better hands, get rid of the positional issue. Yeah. One more thing. SPR.
Stack to pot
stack
ratio.
to pot ratio, right? It's your stack divided by the pot. The bigger the SPR is, the more advantage the players in position have. So by three betting a lot when you're out of position, it decreases the edge the in position players have on you.
Now, something I've seen numerous players at the World Series of Poker do. At my day one table as well, people have been telling me hands. They say, fine, let's three bet it. Let's make it 4,500. But that would be pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because your opponents are going to call you in position. You've not decreased the stack to pot ratio.
Yeah, you're three betting too small.
You're just like bloating the pot with like maybe a tiny bit of equity favored or something. Probably not. So this is a spot where if you're going to re-raise, you must go at least pretty big, right?
Yeah.
So you go 8,000, which I think is fine.
Yeah.
Typically, you want to go about 4.5 times the initial raise plus whatever the callers are, give or take, right?
Yeah, I usually say, go approximately, 3x plus 1x per caller, plus one more x if you're out of position.
And an X here is
the current bet, which is 1,500.
Right. Okay, so you go 8,000, which I think is fine and good. Under the gun, plus 2 calls. Hijack calls, that's not great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to just get heads up, but, whatever. And that's the beauty of three betting this hand, and that's why I'm not three betting something like king jack off. We're deep enough where there's a high likelihood that we're going to have to play some deep stack post flop poker, and if that happens, I want to have a suited hand or something that plays very well, which
this does.
Jaffe qualifies. Yeah.
I have a question. So let's say we did have the king jack off here pre-flop, and you were pretty sure the caller in the middle would fold a lot, because that's just how they operate. They call raises splashy and then they fold.
Yeah.
Would we then prefer to three bet the king jack off, or you think we just three bet them both?
I would generally just fold the king jack off.
Okay.
Maybe if I felt like the opener was very loose and the flatter was very loose, and then they play timid post flop or overfold, my image is really good, maybe I'd go for a squeeze, but I'd say that's like under 5% of the time I would do that.
I forgot this. I have Jonathan Little image. You have Faraz Jaka image. Okay, this is I understand why.
Yeah. I'm folding king jack off. I just, I don't want to get into this scenario with offsuit. It's going to be a tough hand to play.
The hands like king jack offsuit out of position are just not that good, right?
Yeah, just offsuit hands don't play well multi-way, and especially I'm entering a big pot very deep out of position. Yeah.
All right, we get a reasonable flop. We flop a flush draw 10, 7, 5, 2 hearts.
Yeah, so I ended up doing a small C bet here, which worked out fine. But, I tried to be very analytical about spots and not results orientated. And even though this hand worked out for me, I don't like my bet sizing. I think I should have went big bet or check.
What's big bet mean?
Big bet. So when I say big bet, I'm generally referring to 2/3, and when I say small bet, I'm generally referring to 1/3. Of course, that could be 25% or so, but just generally speaking, the reason I want to go big bet here is it's multi-way. It's a very dynamic board, and I'm not going to be betting a lot here. I don't think I'm going to bet ace king, ace queen too often. I'm probably going to be more likely to bet stuff like ace jack and ace 9 suited that I might have squeezed, ace 8 suited. Because these have good back doors, they get better hands to fold. Whereas, for example, when I have ace king, I just wanted to check around, so I hit an ace and ace jack stays in there. Whereas when I have ace jack, I could bet and get ace queen to fold. So yeah, I'm just very polarized here. Another reason with the big bet is lots of times you have spots where like, okay, with jacks and queens here, we're going to bet very big because they need protection. Whereas with aces and kings, we could bet small because they don't need as much protection. But in this scenario, even my aces and kings feel like they need a lot of protection. There's just so many turn cards that shift the equities that I'm going to be worried about. So I kind of want to get a lot of money in now. So long story short, I'm very polarized. I'm doing a lot of checking here. I want to do bet. I want to go big. And that also gets, hands like 9s and 8s and 7x out of there when I do a big bet.
One downside to betting big is that you may get shoved on. You're probably not going to get shoved on all that often in this spot in general, especially if you're betting polarized. But in the World Series of Poker main event, you give somebody a pocket queens or something, they're just going to pile it in, which is not great.
But that's where I'm going to have jacks and I'm going to have queens and I'm going to have kings in this spot. Sure. And if someone's going to shove ace 10, that's great because I really want to get the money in now before a scare card comes in.
But it's not good for this hand, so we don't. There's always this balance of do we care about our hand or do we care about balance?
Yeah, you know what, and that's a great point, and I think that might have been why I went small here, because at least the later position player was not a professional. So I felt like when I go small, they might be less likely to jam. And I think like unconsciously I might have went smaller with this hand because of that. Whereas if I had jacks here or queens, I might have just went bigger.
It's always a tough thing for me when I'm playing tournaments like the World Series main event where everyone's not a great pro. Do I really care if I'm balanced? Because like imagine we look at a GTO solver and it says your whole range to bet big. That's going to bet. Do you do it? Like, maybe not. Maybe it's just not the ideal.
I think
because they're not playing GTO.
Yeah, I think it's good to be aware of what the correct bet sizing is, but then to be willing to do the exploitative thing. And when you're not sure, if you're really not sure, then I would default to the GTO thing if you don't have a good read on why you should go exploitative.
Right. All right, so you go 8K, only the hijack calls, you turn the jack. And I want to ask everyone watching here what they would do in this spot, because it's an interesting scenario, because 9-8 came in, Jack 10 came in. If they had jacks, could have been beat already. But at the same time, top pair is pretty good. So in this spot, out of position, what do we do? Do we check? Do we bet small, like 10,000? Do we bet medium, like 20,000? Or do we bet big? Do we just pile it all in? Pause the video and write what you would do in the comment section below. All right, fun spot. What do you do in this scenario? I don't know. It's a tough one because like your hand's good a lot, right?
So the background with this hand is I felt like this player was starting to get pretty sick of me and starting to make a stand against me. So I thought they were very likely to call with like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, 9-10 suited, 7-8 suited. It's going to look like I have ace king and ace queen a lot here. I don't think this player would give me enough credit to check ace king and ace queen on the flop. They might expect that I just bet those things. So yeah, I felt pretty confident they were going to call light here as long as I don't make it too tough for them. So I want to go on the smaller side. I'm trying to remember. I think I bet like 40% of the pot. Is that right?
17K it looks like. So yeah, about 40% of the pot. That's going to keep them in very easily with I don't even know, like 8-7.
Yeah.
Or 9-8, stuff like, or 9-8. 9-8 is going to stay in there.
Yeah. I was tempted to even go a little bit smaller. I'm not sure if I should have or not, but in game I just felt like this would look a little bluffier.
It's worth noting, though, you are clearly value betting here, and you're very happy with this hand. A lot of people think, ooh, I could be beat, I guess I should check. But you got to realize if you're beat, you're losing all your money anyway.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I have a ton of equity in this hand. I got top pair, I got the flush draw. If I lose this hand and go bust, like that's fine, like whatever. Like we're not getting away from this hand. I'm just focused on how many hands I could get value out of. All the 10s, the 8s, the 9s, the 7-8, there's tons of stuff out there.
The random Jack 9 suited, right? It's like there's a lot out there that you can't get value from. And this is where Faraz starts to get paid off a whole lot more than most other people, because a lot of people play way too tight, way too straightforward. And if you do bet, turn, and jam river here, then they're going to fold out at 10, no problem. But not against Faraz. What if the river is a very blank card, like a 4-3-2?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Are we jamming for value?
That's a good question.
You're for sure jamming. You're jamming for value. Come on. It's a tough spot though, where a lot of people have a hard time.
Well, let's take me out of the equation, right? So what would I do on the river? So I think a big part of the river here is how much? What's the pot's gonna now be? Almost
60,000, 58.
Oh, it's 60 right now. Plus, there's gonna be another 17 in there.
Right. Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
You bet 17. The opponent
Okay,
calls.
so there's gonna be
75.
75 in there, and there's only 45K behind.
Mm-hmm.
When you're that shallow, the thing is the chips are getting in anyways. There's really no benefit of pot controlling. So now the only question I ask myself is, how am I more likely to get these chips in? Is it by betting or is it by checking and inducing a bluff? And the fact that I have the king of hearts makes it less likely that they have a flush draw, which means they're less likely to have a hand to bluff with if I check.
They're more likely to have a value/marginal made hand.
Yeah, I think they're more likely to have a 10, a pocket 8s, pocket 9s, 7-8 suited. It looks like I have ace king, ace queen. They're just gonna. There's a lot of hands that they have showdown with that they don't need to bet. So I'm just putting it in here. Maybe if we had another 200-300K behind, I might consider checking and pot controlling because I'm worried about sets. I'm worried about 8-9. I'm worried they could turn their hand into a bluff. So yeah, basically because we're shallow, I'm just putting it in. Low SPR, you put your chips in more liberally. If we were deeper, I would consider checking.
All right. We don't have to worry about this time. We have a flush.
Yeah.
This is a spot where people also think, oh no, what if I'm running into the nut flush?
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you're losing. You're not check folding. So we're putting our money in here, right? There's
so
like no way around this one.
Yeah, so the only thing here that crossed my mind was, well, before we bet, I did consider checking a little bit, so I just want to talk about that a little bit. We are blocking the jack, which is one of the hands we're going to get called with. You know, if they have a set, if they have 8-9, they're going to already be shoving that. I was basically trying to ask myself, do I think this player is capable of maybe bluffing and trying to represent the heart? So
I was to be bluffing like pocket 8s.
Yeah, like maybe they could take pocket 8s and 9s with a heart or a 10 and just shove it.
I don't trust people in the World Series main event to do that.
That's why I checked. I think some people are for sure capable of that. I didn't get that vibe from this player. I felt like their tournament life was like pretty important to them, and they're the type of player that might think about doing it and then finally check back, like annoyed at themselves that they didn't pull the trigger. And that was my instinct of this player.
Right.
But I think for some opponents, I would check here.
For sure. Well, if you think they're going to bluff, right?
Yeah.
Because like you just said, if it's a blank, you can get more money by betting or checking, right? Same thing here.
Yeah.
Even though we have a hand that can obviously get paid off way better.
Yeah.
Right? Way easier. So anyway, you rip it in. He folds.
Well, he didn't just. Well, he folded and then he asked if he can see my hand, and I said $20 a card, and he instantly took $20 and threw it on there.
Only 20.
Well, he implied that he'll see both. So I flipped over my cards, and then he's like, "Wait, I need that for the valet." And then he's like, "Can I?" Then he was like, "Can I Cash App you?" And he gives me can I Apple Pay you? And he gives me the phone. And I was like, well, I don't want to give my number out to someone I don't know. But
this guy's gonna take you up the back and get you. You better be careful.
But I was like, what about PayPal? And then we negotiated and we landed on PayPal. So
your PayPal's gonna get banned.
So he PayPal'd me $40.
Well, congratulations on your big win.
Yeah, I just wanted to show people you can min cash the main event on day one.
Congrats, great play. You are great at getting the min cash. That's gonna be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks to Faraz for being here. Where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Faraz Jaka, and also on YouTube, Faraz Jaka Poker.
There you go. Get in there, follow him. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Click like, click subscribe, click share, click all the buttons. Go over to Faraz's channel. We'll put a link in the description below. And thank you for being here. Bye-bye.